Well, folks, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. I'm joined here by three really incredible people. I just want to say it's interesting. I've worked at CNBC for a while now. The name of this panel is Going Big From Home. You've heard of Go Big or Go Home. Well, Going Big From Home, and discussing, how these folks have been able to navigate what have been extraordinarily interesting waters over the last 7 months. With me now is Brett Goldstein, the Director of Hedge Fund Sales at Interactive Brokers. Richard Wertheimer, Portfolio Manager, Fort Street Asset Management. I believe he's the founder as well. And Wes Gray, the CEO of Alpha Architect. I want to thank Wes. Wes was a Marine, I believe, for almost 4 years. Wes, thank you for your service. I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone here. And folks, thank you for joining our sessions. You'll notice there's a chat screen to your right. Please feel free to ask questions. We want to make this interactive. We want to absolutely hear from you. So feel free to ask the panelists questions. I'll be looking at the screen to make sure that I can flag these questions. And again, thanks for being here, guys. I want to start, Brett, with you. Fascinating times, obviously. Interactive Brokers, an interesting time to be part of that group. Hedge fund sales. What have you noticed that's changed fundamentally, in your opinion, over the last 6 or 7 months as we've gone to what was a pretty normal environment to what we're dealing with now as we basically begin October?
Right. Thanks for asking that question, Guy. Before we dive in, I also just want to quickly thank both Richard and Wes as clients of Interactive Brokers for participating on this session. I know Richard's out in Hawaii and 3 hours earlier, so getting up at 5. Thank you. Wes, as you said, Guy, someone who served this country, and I know he's too modest to mention it, but thank you for taking the time away last week to prepare with us. I know you, as a service-disabled minority-owned firm, were very focused on the March for the Fallen last week, and it's just a great organization everyone should be aware of to honor those who served our country, and I want to thank you as well. But, Guy, thank you for the question. So from an Interactive Brokers perspective, right, we are one of the largest brokerage firms and custodians out there. We're dealing with 100,000 clients, half of those institutional. We have over 230 billion in assets. And many of those clients, what are we seeing? Both clients and new clients over the past 6 months has been systemic change in terms of how we operate and what we see. Clients like Richard, who have come to us from Morgan Stanley previously, clients like Wes, who are building out new products. But what we're seeing day to day is existing multi-billion-dollar asset managers who are trying to find their way, who are looking at the economy in terms of like the global macro outlook and figuring out what could they do from a fiduciary responsibility, from an investment thesis during these turbulent times and highly volatile times to be nimble and manage. And that's ultimately what Interactive Brokers does best. We give access to clients around the globe to trade all products. And we've seen an inflow that was unanticipated. I could admit for our firm, we're sort of caught behind the 8 ball trying to move forward quickly to onboard new clients like never before. It's gold-plated problem, but for us trying to manage that, we had all hands on deck working from home, which is okay for us as a fintech firm. But that means people trying to trade globally, all products, equities, options, futures, fixed income, distressed, high yield, and foreign exchange, all moving and doing that at the same time. So it was incredibly unique times and great for us. And we were glad to be there to support our clients.
I appreciate that answer. And Weston, I want to turn to you because Brett just mentioned, your service, but you built a company like many people in this country from nothing to now. I think if I'm looking correctly, you must have $1 billion in assets in a 10-year period of time. That's pretty remarkable growth. And you've been able to grow over the last 7 months. I think you have a firm of 8 people, many different products. Can you speak to exactly what got you to, let's just say, December, and then how you've had to pivot over the last 7 months? But in aggregate, how you've built what's a pretty incredible business, Wes.
Sure. So I think the biggest thing about dealing with chaos like we're dealing with right now is in the Marine Corps. There's actually the Marine Corps motto is Semper Fidelis, which means always faithful. But there's also an inside motto that's Semper Gumby, which means always flexible. Right. So I think the key thing about adapting in this environment, not just for us, but any firm, is really just making sure you have a culture of adaptation and being flexible. as opposed to like whining and complaining about, what's been delivered to us. So that's really at a high level, the biggest piece that I think is important. And, half my firm is veterans, so we all kind of get that. And the other thing that we kind of got blessed with is because we started off bootstrapping, we've always operated remotely because we were too broke to afford an office. So to us, this is like, well, what else is new? Like going back to old days of just grinding it out at home where everyone's got their system and, no big deal. And then the only other thing I would mention that just to give a shout out to IB here is counterparty is actually also important to focus on, where you can be squared away. But if your counterparties are like, hey, dude, we can't operate, we're down and out because of COVID, that's not going to work. And IB in particular, during March, we had an issue with like a margin situation, and they had their developers working from home, probably smoking a cigarette and, stressed out as all can be. They actually made it happen. So that was just really thankful for having good counterparties as well as good culture. Kind of key ingredients.
And I appreciate that, Wes. And more people joining the room, and you folks that are joining, I want to encourage you, you see the chat room on the right. Please feel free to ask questions because we do want to hear from you. And I'm going to turn to Richard now. You worked at big institutions. You made a decision to start your own firm, your own RIA. And I read your background, and it's fascinating. And folks, you should read all three of these fellows' background. But Richard, specifically, you're somebody as a teenager. I think you were 18 years old. You bought a one-way ticket to China. I think you drove a cab there. I think you played on the Taipei national rugby team. You're an avid surfer. I mean, I totally get why somebody with that background would take that risk. But can you speak to the decision to go from, the big box institutions to starting your own firm? That's a brave, risky, interesting proposition.
Yeah. Thanks, Guy. When you're younger, you really don't know any better. I think that's how that all started. And then one thing leads to another. But we really are the summation of all our different experiences. And I think that just continues through, and it has continued through for myself. And a lot of what Wes was saying about, in crisis, there is opportunity and keeping perspective. And so on one hand, this was the culmination of many years of trying things different ways. And I was really looking for something that wanted to manage money for my own family and for others. And we wanted to do it in a way that made sense for us. And we didn't want to just do that fit into somebody else's box. And without having to reinvent the wheel, having the right structure and the right package is really important. And what we discovered is I didn't want to start another fund. I started a hedge fund back in the 90s in Asia. I was one of the first Asian-based hedge funds. And it was interesting. In those days, you could have, I think the expression was, two guys, a Bloomberg and a dog, and you could you were off and away, and you could do that. But still, behind the scenes on that, it was cumbersome and very expensive, and it took a lot of time. And it was nothing like now. And so we were at Morgan Stanley for about 5 years or so in Hawaii, and great shop. Total respect for Morgan Stanley and what they do, but they really don't fit guys like us. We kind of fall between the cracks. We are fund managers, and yet we didn't want to start another fund. We didn't want to have the headaches. We didn't have the restrictions. We didn't want to have the costs associated with that. And it took us a bit of time, but eventually we found Interactive Brokers, and we made that decision to go independent. And starting a business in the best of times is never easy. Doing it in the middle of COVID was interesting. Interactive was super helpful. They held our hands throughout the whole process. We were able to get up and running. Clients came on board, even though a lot of people were quite scared to do anything. And on one hand, the business structure allowed us to be successful in getting to where we are today. And that's 9 months later. We've been able to raise just shy of $100 million, and we performed really well on top of that. And that's again testament to the business structure and the platform, and it's just a testament to the world where the world is today. I mean, technology-wise, it is incredible. I mean, we sometimes forget. It's kind of like being in an airplane when everything is moving really fast, but you don't necessarily feel it. And I think we're kind of a microcosm or a metaphor for that for that what's happening today. So it's been incredibly exciting. We really are lucky that we've had interactive brokers to help us, and I think it's the way of the future.
And Brett, I want to. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard something, and I apologize. Brett, I want to quickly go to you. Listen, last 7 months, this advent, we're seeing a rise in day trading, which we probably haven't seen in the last, 12 years or so. Davey, day trader, I'm sure you all know Dave Portnoy. You've seen what's going on there. And there's been tremendous growth. And I just want to ask Brett, how does that growth of the day trader, of the retail investor trader, how does that compare with what you've seen historically on the institutional front? And I want to ask Wes and Richard a similar question, but Brett, I want you to answer that one for us.
Yeah. So, Guy, I caught the tail end of that, just having a little...
I apologize, Brett. I saw you that dropped that. What I was saying was, over the last 7 months, we've seen this rise of day trading. Dave Portnoy, I'm sure you've seen it. So the growth on that side of the business, how does it compare? What are the similarities? How does it make your job more difficult, easier in terms of what you do on the institutional side? Because clearly there's been this rise in day trading over the last 7 months for a myriad of different reasons.
Great question. And I think, my boss, Thomas Petterfee, founder of our firm, really owns in on that. And I think a testament to that has been our ability as a firm to build out what's called IBKR Lite. So we've all seen, the stories, as you mentioned, of some Robinhood traders using other platforms. And we were at the forefront of putting that out there, free trading. And really, that's based on a lot of payment for order flow. It's an area that goes underserved. Not a lot of people really care to look at that research. We're glad to offer it. So what we offer is free trading. What we've seen, and that was part of the influx, that we got an incredible amount of new clients coming on board. And to your point, Guy, we see this great increase in flow of retail business that is looking for no-cost trading. And that goes payment for order flow. And that's fine with us. We give you the tools, we let you drive. Institutionally, we really haven't seen many people go there, but we see people continuing to come to us institutionally because of our pillar strength of best execution, smart routing, algos, our ability to do that at the lowest cost. So when you look at our 100,000 clients and new people coming on board, Wes, Richard, you see them using our lowest cost tools. And people are really focusing on that for financing, coming to us at, Fed plus 30 type spreads, the lowest cost out there. So really, we're handling both, but we bifurcated the firm also. On the retail side, we continue to focus on supporting those people, leveraging what we do as a firm, focusing on a lot of AI and technology and automation, keeping our margins high and our expenses low. Institutionally, no one's ever going to call us high touch as a firm, but we're full service. So we want to offer, as Richard said, groups like capital introductions, the ability to soft dollar, institutional training team. Our curve is steep to learn the platform, but we flatten it by bringing teams in focused on institutional clients out of the gate. And that's helped a lot for us.
So Richard and Wes, I'm going to ask you a similar question. Wes, get ready because I'm going to start with Richard, so I apologize for this, Richard. We were talking prior to, going on stage here how our show, Fast Money, in a lot of ways we made your lives a lot more difficult because you're fielding calls from people. Guy Adami said this, Jim Cramer said that, and it's very hard to do your business in the context of having to navigate the day-to-day, minute-to-minute. Caterpillar went up, Boeing went down. In this environment, Richard, now especially given the backdrop of what I just mentioned to Brett, how do you navigate those phone calls? I obviously can't speak to your client base, but I know you're getting those types of calls. How do you sort of manage and marry the two?
Yeah, no, it's a great dilemma, if you will, and it's one of the reasons why we're sitting here in Hawaii. Partly it's a personal choice for the waves, but partly it's also because we're far from the madding crowds. Our investment strategy is not predicated on the markets. We are very long term, and I've been in this business a long time. I've been a trader and a hedge fund manager. I've tried all different ways. I've made plenty of mistakes along the way, and occasionally I've gotten some things right. So what we do today is an accumulation of that, that experience. So Yeah, we do get those calls, and it's definitely something that we watch. We are very cognizant of what's going on in the market. It's a testament to the type of business that we're running. And again, that long-term orientation really being positioned for the future, not being as concerned about what the market is doing from day to day. And really, we run a very tight practice. We're not trying to be all things to all people. We don't have a massive client base, so we're able to communicate. I think that's really part of what we started this. It was a question of how do you personalize this and yet be able to interpret the information that's coming in, like you said, all the day traders and all the noise out there. And I think that's where the strategy and the business platform both come into it. So if you're able to have the right structure, that's half of the battle, and the other part is on the execution side. So it's been, there's definitely been a lot of calls about that. What does this represent? And even as market prognosticators ourselves, we're concerned with those type of activities, and yet we're also intrigued by it because we are big believers in this very long-term technological evolution or even revolution that's happening, and we think that's endemic of what we're seeing. Some of it is also quite risky, and we are concerned in terms of those type of day traders and fearful for them. But there's also something else underlying going on that history doesn't repeat it. It only rhymes. And so I would say that's on par. It hasn't had a huge impact on our business. Again, more because of the nature of our strategy and the type of clients we have.
Yeah, Wes, and there's a discipline that you all have, but obviously with the military background, there's a certain discipline that you have as well. And I'm sure it can be frustrating to sort of potentially field those calls. I was just talking to Brett and Richard about. Can you speak to the discipline and how you remain focused in an environment where everything is immediate? There's an immediacy to everything. I want to go from no money to a millionaire. I get the whole thing. How do you deal with that in a business that's so long focused as yours?
Same thing that Richard's done. At a high level, our firm mission is not to sell a bunch of our crap to everyone. It's to empower investors through education. So we're very focused on training our investors to not be idiots and to be disciplined, gunfighters that are going to win in the long-term war, and not be some, crazy that day trades. No offense to IB, because a lot of people day trade there, and that's great for them. But we're not trying to promote that. So just because of the segmentation of who we attract, we generally don't have to deal with the crazy maniac client calling up saying, "Oh my God, Tesla's down," and so that's kind of a nice thing, I would say. The other thing that we focus a lot on, if we do get people like that, is we'll basically just fire them, right? We'll just fire clients. And we always anti-sell. We do concentrated factor funds to include value funds, which have bombed off a cliff. But we also have momentum funds that have done really well. And if anyone comes in and talks performance, our first word is you probably need to leave. Let's focus on process and long duration and thinking through the problem here. So long story short, we don't really have to deal with this problem after the fact because we've already pre-trained and kind of selected our clients to not be idiots, basically.
I appreciate that. I'm sure we make your life a lot more difficult, as I mentioned earlier. John, and John, this is from John Kingry to Richard. Richard, what tools did Interactive Brokers provide that were most important to you when you say they held your hand through the process? What aspects of the setup did you need support on? That's the question from the audience.
Yeah, that's a great question. When you launch away from the mothership, and I've done it a number of times in my career, it's always a scary thought. Because you feel like you're on your own, and you are, you can be a victim. You're vulnerable. So I would say just the number one thing is they just held our hands and just say, listen, this is doable. You're going to be okay. It was making sure that they had the tools that the accounts could be set up in a easy way, and it was the tools and the people really that were there to help us with that process. And if they didn't have those tools, or they can't do everything, and this is a testament to the way the world is going, then they made sure to introduce it to the right people, whether those were legal counsel or accounting folks or order management system folks, people, outside vendors. And that's the beauty of that open architecture they are not trying to get in your way. They're not trying to be all things to all people. Like our investment strategy, we're not trying to be all things to all people. And to Wes's point, we're very careful in what we say and how we position ourselves, so we get the right people coming to us, and therefore there's less conflict down the line. So it was those kind of things that Interactive Brokers really helped. And I got to say, I'm shocked that we were able to get up and running as fast as we did in this period. And that's a testament to the platform. And I think it's only going to get more like that in the future. You're going to see more folks like ourselves that are coming out of the institutional world, that are coming out of the private banks and looking to set up. And I think there's going to be platforms going to allow them to do that. And again, Guy, to your point, it's kind of this merging and accessibility to the folks that are out there, where it is available, from an educational point of view and from a product point of view. You can be specialized and not be penalized for it.
Brett, to sort of dovetail into Richard's point and to John's question, is that what you're seeing? You're seeing more people sort of move to your platform, and what are the changes? Since you've been doing this, what do you think the biggest change or changes that you've seen in terms of just the business and the business model of Interactive Brokers?
Great question. Those lines, I hesitate to age myself and say I've basically almost done this for a decade at Credit Suisse, a decade at Citigroup, and now a decade at Interactive Brokers. At my two previous firms, it was a very high-touch solution. I think we've all seen the ability to deliver that high-touch solution other than to a very, very small amount of clients is just not realistic. So, when I look at Thomas Petterfy and Interactive Brokers, what we do is we found ways to deliver that same solution that used to be delivered high-touch on a highly scalable, automated way. And what that is, and Richard just very eloquently touched on, are the services we offer. So we built out sort of through attorneys automated solutions called, say, Greenwich Compliance. We help managers identify what is necessary from a regulatory perspective, whether Richard sets up in Hong Kong or whether Richard's in Hawaii with clients in Hong Kong, whether Wes maybe wants to open separately managed accounts with his offshore entity in Cayman or wherever. We want to scrutinize and identify regulatory hurdles and then also allow people to do that on a nimble budget. And part of what we wanted to identify here, what does that look like? Of course, anyone internally at a large global institutional asset manager could turn to their general counsel and say, go reach out to the best and largest law firm and go pay 50 to 100,000 and let's go incubate a strategy. Let's set up a separately managed account with our GP money. What we allow you to do at Interactive Brokers, and this is what we've been busy doing, is set up those same accounts. But we have resources internally and externally that could help people launch funds for potentially less than $5,000. That could let you leverage our infrastructure to have customized billing for separately managed accounts, trade them pari passu to a fund or across thousands of accounts, no cost to do that, and leverage our platform for automated customized billing. So John's question was great to Richard. These are all things we're providing, are free at no cost, white labeling solutions, help to build your website, access to a CRM at no cost. Basically give you a platform, no cost, no minimums, whether you're a family office, whether you're a fund, whether you're an advisor launching. And we've really built a scalable way to do that makes people feel included and makes them really feel that they've got specialization behind them in our investor community.
And I appreciate that answer. And Wes, in the final few minutes we have, and Richard, hopefully I can get to you as well, but listen, obviously last night, I think most of the country was watching the debates. This is not a political question at all, but clearly a month from now, we're going to have a newly elected president or a president to serve his second term. Do your investment strategies change at all? Do you sort of stay the course and politics is noise?
Yeah, I mean, we're systematic quants, so it doesn't have a Trump factor embedded in the model. So yeah, we buy cheap stocks and we buy high momentum stocks. It's pretty straightforward. So fortunately or unfortunately, it's not very dynamic to politics. Richard?
Yeah, I mean, we're the opposite. We're definitely not quant with a lot of respect there. We are very long-term investors. It's noise for us. I mean, politics is important if it creates regulatory changes and then that affects the fundamentals. But we are very bottom up, and we're looking for very long-term trends and position our portfolio for the future. So, and if you look back on politics and elections and how it affects markets, historically, yes, it is more noise. Can there be volatility around that? Absolutely. Even though our strategy is not predicated on the market whatsoever, we are focused on the companies. We still understand that this, it can be volatile, but for us, it's an opportunity. And ultimately, we're pretty bullish on the possibilities that all this technology that we've been talking about that's allowed guys like us to do what we do. And we think that's going to carry through in the future, obviously with some challenges that are out there. But it's like anything, there's a Chinese character for crisis. It's Wei and Ji. And the first character is Wei is danger. And the second character is opportunity. And so we look at this as an opportunity. Yes, things are hard, but it's the obstacle is the path. And so I think the country and the world needs to say, okay, look, there are bad things out there and the markets may be affected by this, but we actually look at it as a positive challenge and that things can come out really well. So yeah, I think that we're not too worried about it.
Richard, I appreciate that. Richard, thank you for your time. Wes, thank you. Obviously, Brett, thank you. Folks, the Expo tab on your left, please visit the Interactive Brokers tab when you get there. I want to ask you all to join the main stage now, the Alpha of Inclusion. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, folks, for spending some time with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Guy.
Thanks, guys.